I sat down and I decided to listen to what my son was listening to. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, these words are, they are demeaning to women, they are violent, they're racist, they're anti-white, they're totally anti-white in our society. And I mean, you've got young white people who are anti-white, anti-establishment, anti-everything.
Well, the anti-establishment side's always been there.
Absolutely.
I mean, back when they thought that Elvis Presley was evil, Bill Haley was evil, and especially the Rolling Stones were evil. So that's
Absolutely.
been there.
I think, can I ask you what your son's listening to right now? What kind of music?
Rap music.
He's listening to rap music?
Yeah,
Well, of course,
hardcore rap. Niggers with attitudes, lynch mob. I mean, those are the lyrics that I send through to Darren. I mean, there's no way in the world that you could allow children to have
Rob,
this.
first of all, I should point out, you were the new band called Fight, and at your old band, you were cleared of any involvement in those suicides.
In that trial, yeah. Well, I mean, the basic issue there was an accusation by the prosecution that we'd put in these so-called subliminal messages into our music, which of course was completely false. And what we found out instantly when the trial began was that the real issue here was the fact that the parents weren't doing the right job in looking after their kids. You know, these kids were running wild, drinking and smoking drugs and so forth. Now, it's for me. I mean, I've been in the rock and roll profession for over 20 years of my life, and I've been through that whole stage as a rebellious kid and so forth. And so I think I have a real understanding of the issues that we're talking about here today. They are important, obviously, and I think it's something that does need to be discussed and looked at when it has something of real important value. But to me, I think that it's just a simple stage, a progression that most kids go through in growing up, and I would say that 99.9% of them come out of it completely harmless. They enjoy their music, they get the pleasure, they get the entertainment, they get the enjoyment. What kind of message or a factual involvement they get from it in terms of taking what they listen to and putting it into their own lives, I think is a very small percentage.
Well, let's go, Dr. Martin. The question that's in my mind, and I haven't got the answer to it, is it the music that can depress a teenager so much that they contemplate suicide, or is it a teenager who's feeling the pressures and contemplating suicide who then becomes obsessed with certain music? I'm talking chicken and egg thing here.
Sure. I mean, our research showed that it was probably the latter, which is that kids who were really struggling, that they had difficult backgrounds, they'd got into drugs and alcohol, were actually looking for a group with whom they could identify and who made them feel better, who gave them self-esteem, where other groups in society weren't giving them self-esteem. So they sought this group out, and it was almost as if the music was echoing something inside them, was actually allowing them to work something through. Having said that, it seemed to us that the ones who were really going for the heavy metal were actually the most distressed and the most disturbed. They had the most disturbed backgrounds in terms of broken families. They were the ones who were drinking most. They were using other substances, marijuana, whatever. And they also had a history of suicide in the past much more frequently.
You know, my teenager, when he was a teenager, at 14, was into heavy metal, and he was talking about Iron Maiden, and I thought he meant Margaret Thatcher. I mean, I've totally gone from it. But let's get back to things like, I mean, looking in as role models. Ice-T sings about killing policemen, killing the pigs, and Charlton Heston came out and attacked that in a speech. Another group whose name escapes me talked about sodomising the 12-year-old nieces of Tipper Gore, the wife of the Vice President of the United States. Now, surely this can be harmful to an impressionable child.
And parents, I believe, what I want to do, Darren, is make everyone, like how many mums out there? You've got teenagers. Do you know what your kids are listening to? Sit down and listen to tapes. There's one that I found from a group called Niggers with Attitudes. And the opening line talks about how what happens when you have oral sex, and it's in 2 lines and it's so explicit. And it goes on to get worse and worse and worse. Well, listen to the words. Well,
I talk about my family. I mentioned my 23-year-old stepson now, and I said one of the bands I talk about is Red Hot Chili Peppers. And he said, oh, they're not very bad. They're not bad. And they're very popular with 12 and 13, 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
I then got the lyrics out, and we can look at some of them, I hope, at some stage. But I got the lyrics out, and there's stuff in that which is just amazing. I mean, there's one about raping a
Like
raping a policewoman. And the stuff that we haven't showed you, which I said I'd be tossed off air if I ran it. And you wonder then, should there be? You can't ban it because kids will think it's even better and get hold of it. But should there be like an R system where like they can't go to movies unless they're 18? So should there be that sort of situation to see?
I think there's if you're talking about responsibility here, I think there's a fact that I mean, from my point of view as an artist, I demand the right to be able to express myself freely with my music. Yeah, to adults, and I'm not opposed to some kind of guidelines. Now, I've always been opposed to censorship, and I always will be. But it's those lyrics that you just put up on there on that screen are no different to the girly mags you can go into any news agent in Sydney or anywhere in Australia.
That is being pumped into those children's head with that rap music.
It's not being pumped into it. They have the choice to go into a record store and buy that product.
We're talking about 12, 13-year-old kids that really it shouldn't be available to.
Well, this is where we're talking about the system of putting in a sticker that says this contains explicit lyrics. In my opinion, if a kid goes into a record store and sees that and thinks, oh, there's dirty words on that, I'm going to pick that up.
But if a 13-year-old can't go to see an R-rated movie
and can't buy a packet of cigarettes
and can't buy booze at a certain age, there must be some merit in some grading system. And I don't like censorship either, but if you had a grading system, because record companies might think like movie companies, that, gee, if we get an R rating, we're not going to sell as many tickets. If we get an R rating, we're not going to sell as many CDs. And maybe, especially younger people, would that work?
Look, there are two problems with that. I mean, one is that just because you've got some system of control doesn't mean that you're actually going to control the problem. If I want to find out where to get marijuana, which don't particularly, but if I did, I'd go and ask an 11 or 12-year-old at school because they all know.
But Graham, what you're saying is that if you, because you don't feel that you can control it, let it go. What comes after this?
What I'm saying is I think we're actually asking the wrong question, which is why are these particular kids seeking out these particular
because
words
the music
or
is terrific.
the music? That may be,
the
but
music
there's other
is great.
terrific
I love the rap
around.
music. It's not all the groups. It's just some of the groups.
Exactly, and I think that's an important thing to put across here today. That not all music, not all contemporary rock music, metal music, rap music contains that kind of language.
Absolutely not.
The majority of it, the music that we play in this band Fight that I'm with now, talks about real issues, social issues, valuable points. In all of my career as a musician, I've never written anything that I would consider to be negative. It's always misconstrued by people that don't understand it, and that's when the fear factor comes in, and that's when people start to attack you for the wrong reasons.
When you're talking about mothers in the audience, I'm sure there are a lot of mothers here today that the most you've ever said about your children's music is turn that rubbish down. It's too loud, right? So you are flying blind.
Metal Matt, Alice Cooper here. Good name, by the way. I'll tell Rob that I talked to you. I know, we got canceled at Comic-Con in London, but that'll come back up again. We'll do that. You're a singer-songwriter, and you know, the best thing you can do during this crazy time right now is to write as much as you can. You know, writing is everything. All right? I will check out your YouTube, and I'm glad I'm your hero. And the best thing I can say to a guy like Metal Matt is, whatever you do, don't rust.